The world over, wherever a Jew finds a Portuguese, help him. And wherever a Portuguese finds a Jew, help him too. With Abraham and the first Hebrews, a history spanning 4,000 years began. Centuries of tribulation in Egypt, the receiving of the Torah at Mount Sinai, the conquest of Canaan, and the reign of David 3,000 years ago. The 10 tribes lost after the Assyrian invasion, the destruction of the first temple by the Babylonians, and the arrival of the Roman Empire.
The destruction of the Second Temple by the Romans 2 millennia ago led to the exile of Jews around all the world, including the Iberian Peninsula.
Far, far away from Jerusalem, Jews thrived in Spain and Portugal. They were descendants of the tribe of Judah.
In Sepharad, during centuries, the Jews lived with the Romans, the Germanic tribes, the Muslims, and the Catholics.
The Jews lived especially in mercantile and port cities, of which Oporto was an example. The history of the Jewish community of Oporto is ancient, predating the foundation of Portugal itself. Throughout the Middle Ages, the Jewish community maintained good relations with its predominantly Roman Catholic neighbors. The Jews of Oporto felt so protected that they built a synagogue outside the city's defensive walls. In Oporto, there were never any pogroms against the Jews. After the expulsion of the Jews from Spain, Rabbi Isaac Aboab, the greatest authority in the Jewish world at the time, lived in Oporto. This Posek and Torah commentator was called the last Gaon of Castile. When he died in 1493, his disciple, Abraham Zacuto, delivered his funeral address.
In memory of the ancient Jewish community of Porto, whose members had the merit to live and to be laid to rest next to the greatest Torah authority of the time, Rabbi Yitzchak Aboab.
There were tens of thousands of forced conversions to Catholicism. Many of the forced converts continued practicing some elements of the Jewish religion in secret. When they were discovered, they were subject to gruesome torture and execution by burning.
During the Inquisition, many Jews died, and many others immigrated to all continents. My mother's family fled to Algeria, and my father's fled to Tunisia and Livorno.
In Oporto, the action of the Inquisition was limited. However, in 1618, an inquisitorial visitation led to the detention of 150 new Christians of Jewish origin, which, to a great extent, tore a rip in the social, economic, and financial fabric of Oporto.
There was inquisitorial terror. The Jews have to flee. My family initially fled to Antwerp and then later settled in Poland.
Portuguese Jews dispersed throughout the world.
For centuries, my family was lived in Morocco. When the Portuguese king Don Sebastian invaded Africa, the Sephardic Jew thought they would be converted to Christianity again.
For 400 years, there was no official Jewish community in Oporto. Oporto was only to regain a Jewish community at the end of the 19th century, when a few dozen Ashkenazim settled in this city.
They were mainly German, Polish, and Russian immigrants, small traders. The first recorded birth took place in 1897. Charles Getz, son of German Jews.
For decades, Jewish life in Oporto was dependent on the few Ashkenazi families in the city: Kudel, Getz, Lieberman, Roskin, Kinikinski, Janowski, Rabanovich, and others. Most of the community members were Polish.
My grandparents were religious. In Poland, they were born into a 3 million strong community. In Porto, they found a Jewish community with 30 people. My grandfather, Cyril Finkelstein, was a standby rabbi on the synagogue for decades.
In the 1920s and 30s, a brave Jewish soldier, Barros Basto, believed it would be possible to attract and convert the Portuguese Marranos to Judaism. As the Marranos mixed Jewish and Catholic rituals, Basto created a school, a newspaper, and a Jewish structure. Unfortunately, so much effort did not result in a single official Jew, a single Jewish family. In anticipation of the failed return of the Marranos, philanthropy from the Sephardic Diaspora led to the construction of a magnificent synagogue in Oporto.
The synagogue was almost empty, only serving the resident Ashkenazi community of Oporto, composed by dozens of people.
The synagogue played a key role in harboring refugees during the Second World War. Refugees from Germany, Poland, Austria, Belgium, Czechoslovakia, France, Netherlands, Bulgaria, Luxembourg, and many other countries passed through Oporto, some stateless and some originally from Argentina and Iran. After the departure of the refugees, the synagogue was almost empty again. Only the weddings of Ashkenazim families gave life to the Jewish community of Oporto.
When my family and I arrived in Porto in 1970, we were thrilled to find such a big, beautiful synagogue, but saddened because nobody went there. Our family and a few others, but mostly it was empty.
During the years when democracy was installed in the country, the communist movements occupied factories owned by some members of the community and threatened others, accusing them of being capitalists. At the same time, far-right movements stoned and vandalized the synagogue, claiming that it supported the communists. Oporto bore witness to the traumatic life of Emil Oppenheim, a German refugee, former lawyer and political activist in Germany, who lived out his life working in a modest laundry. When he died in 1982, no Jew from Oporto attended the funeral and the Kaddish was not recited. One day, a nun who was a nurse in a Catholic institution and had treated Oppenheim in the last years of his life visited his tomb and recited the Kaddish. One of the smallest Jewish communities in Europe, it had one of the largest synagogues. Despite the small size of the community, one of its members, Paltiel Pressman, was the sole supplier of berets to the Portuguese army. A further member of the community, Henry Tillo, was president of the Oporto Industrial Association.
As far as I can remember, the community never exceeded 20 or 30 Jews at most. However, a mere decade ago, circumstances completely changed.
In 2012, the building of the synagogue was rehabilitated. Jewish life was reborn. The community established a kosher hotel in Oporto to receive Jewish tourism. In 2015, legislation was approved allowing descendants of Sephardic Jews to acquire Portuguese nationality. The renewed Jewish community of Oporto held a special Shabbat to recite the Kaddish in memory of Emil Oppenheim. Composed of 500 Jews from 30 countries, the majority come from traditional Sephardic families who for centuries lived in the Balkans and in Arab or Muslim countries.
My maternal family is from Smyrna in Turkey. My grandmother still spoke a Ladino. a language that mixes Portuguese, Castilian, Greek, and Turkish.
Jewish life: Torah, Achdut, Kashrut, Tzedakah, Mazal News. Jewish culture, content production, education.
The rabbis of the community lead the synagogue and Jewish life. Other members lead the Jewish Museum and the Holocaust Museum.
It's heartwarming to see how important the synagogue has become since I first knew it 50 years ago. It's fulfilling its destiny.
On 10 March 2019, a Boeing 737 MAX crashed in Ethiopia. The catastrophe caused the death of 157 people, including Shimon Bitton, a Jew of Portuguese origin who was in the process of obtaining citizenship with the help of the Oporto community. Even after this disaster, the deceased sister wanted to fulfill his wish of attaining Portuguese nationality, a homecoming.
משאלתו של אחי שמעון דניאל לבית ביטון ראם, זכרו לברכה, הייתה לחיות כאן, בארץ, בארץ אבותיו ושורשיו. מוזיאון זה מספר 2000 שנות היסטוריה של העם היהודי בספרד. אחי הוא חלק מההיסטוריה הזאת.